Welcome back, college baseball fans, specifically ACC fans. It's our regularly scheduled ACC show, albeit a day late. We have our super regional set up. I am joined by Nick. Micah is coming at some point. He's late. We told him 8 o'clock. I told him I was going live. Here I am live. Nick, how are you?
Man, I am great. I had a fantastic time in Raleigh. Packed out Doak. Thank you again, Monty, for the lead on getting credentialed. Everything went like it couldn't have gone smoother for me. Where to go, who to talk to, all that. Got to go to press conferences, all that kind of stuff. Very fun. The atmosphere was great. So shout out to the Wolfpack Nation that showed up. The Doak was rocking. Had myself a great weekend. Got to say goodbye to some of the Wake guys throughout the last couple of days. So that kind of stinks. You know, I've known these guys for 2, 3, 4 years. So they've been coming in. I'm sure you guys talked about the Greenville Regional and put your thoughts out there about it. But
when do you think we talked about it?
The night after or like the night of?
I think we did. I think we did. I can't remember. It feels like forever ago. We definitely didn't talk about it last night because we tried to stick to just UNC and kind of that stuff because we knew we were going to be doing this show today.
Yeah. And I'm sure everyone's, the big question of that game was why no Cole Rowland, all of that. So it stinks. If you could go back in time, I think Walt would put Cole in to start the ninth. I had like Wake or NC State people that knew that I covered Wake this season came to me and asked me, did Walt ever explain why like they didn't put Cole in? And I was like, he explained why he never put him in after 2 hits, but never explained why he didn't start him in the ninth. So, but anyway, it was hard to say goodbye. Those guys are going to have bright futures for sure. Nick is going to be top 10. Seaver is going to go somewhere. Chase is going to go somewhere. So, but I had a great weekend. And I can't wait to preview regionals. How was Charlottesville?
It was great. Real quick, we are finally joined by the late Micah. Here he is. Micah looks a little sad, looks a little tired. How you doing, Micah?
Well, my computer restarted in the middle of everything, so that was cool.
That makes sense then. I was wondering because I was like, for everyone wondering, I'm giving Mike a hard time because he's actually never late. So that's actually why it's kind of funny to give him a hard time because normally he's here before Nick. But I hope your computer's okay. How are you feeling today? We've got the super regional set.
I'm tired, but other than that, I'm good. Ready to roll. I mean, clearly, Monty, you are rocking the one team. I don't know. It will be the hardest for me to rock all weekend. So glad someone will be charging forward with Florida State.
I mean, it's the hardest for all of us too, I think, cover because it's the one that's going to be farthest away from us all. And
I just meant
the most money.
My beloved UConn Huskies are going side by side.
Oh, I thought you were talking physically difficult to rock. Okay, I got you. Yeah.
I mean, it is very physically difficult because, of course, them getting the noon slate 2 on Friday killed any dream of me going there because I.
Yeah. By the way, I noticed that I don't know if you noticed this because I know we talked about it or somebody tweeted, I think it was you, about how UConn kind of got screwed with the timing. Mm-hmm. I will notice that they could have done a different time rather than noon. But I did notice that all the games on Friday are one side of the College World Series bracket, and all the games on Saturday are the other side of the bracket. So I don't know why that matters a week ahead of time, but the noon game.
I knew it was going to be. Am I freezing? Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I heard you. Yeah. I wasn't finished. I was finishing my thought.
No, I just last time I recorded in this room, Tuffy Talk, my thing decided to crash on me, so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't doing that again, but. No, I knew that part, and at the end of the day, right, we had 4 teams that played yesterday that advanced on the other side of the bracket, so I kind of knew that, like, UVA and that side of the bracket was going to be Friday, but like you said, it's the time that throws me off the most. Also, noon. Too, like, it's Florida at noon.
Yeah,
like, and I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but Monty, you and I both know it's kind of a common theme if you know anything about Virginia baseball. Who wants to play at noon more than anybody in this remaining field? Brian O'Connor.
Yeah, Brian O'Connor loves the noon game.
And, like, I'm not trying to slander Kansas State and Virginia, but, like, from an eyeballs television standpoint, I would argue Florida State and UConn probably gets the same amount of eyeballs at 7:00 as Virginia and Kansas State would.
If not more. I would think Florida State's a bigger national brand than Virginia, as much as we are.
And
Virginia
UConn's
fans.
a very underrated fan base too. So I
Yeah.
mean, again, like UConn, Kansas State kind of fall into the category of like good fan bases, but again, like it's not like their fan bases like worldwide or anything like that, or like again, it's not like their baseball programs are known for their Omaha runs. So I'm just kind of surprised by it. But again, I mean, that's the only kicker. I mean, Kentucky's playing at 9:00 on a Sunday night. So, some teams also got some really weird ends of the sticks because, Oregon State is the supposed reason
Oregon
for that.
State, like they're not real. Oregon State.
Well, like if that's the reasoning is that because of
just...
Oregon State, they want to do a 6:00 Pacific time game. Here's my response to that: be good enough to host the Supers. Like, that's my pushback on that. But
neither of those teams are ACC, so I don't care what they do.
Oregon State will be an ACC team soon enough. Don't you worry, Monty.
All right, before we get into it, Nick is not going anywhere this weekend, unfortunately. He's going to have some serious FOMO. I'm going to Charlottesville. The big question is, Micah had an option at all 4. He texted us today asking what he should do. I don't know if he's made a final decision. Micah, have you made a final decision on where you are going this weekend?
I am taking my talents to the Americas team in Knoxville, Tennessee. No, I'm just kidding. That would be kind of funny, though, if I just dropped that on you guys.
Just go to a non-ACC regional?
I wouldn't hate that.
I mean, it's America.
It's right there for you, buddy.
Yeah, it's America.
Don't encourage this. We need ACC coverage.
No, I'm going to Chapel Hill. The hope is that UNC can get it done in 2, and maybe I can do Clemson on Sunday. That's kind of the hope. That's what we're rooting for here. Because Clemson starts on Saturday.
Yep, they're on the other side of the
UNC
bracket.
starts on Friday. So the hope is that UNC can get it done in 2, and then I have the option of hopefully it's not Virginia game 3, or again, hopefully it's just Clemson game 2. But that's the hope, but we'll see.
All right. Well, let's start with the recap of some of the regionals. Let's start with ones that we weren't at. So let's start with Duke, maybe in Norman. Duke, we all chose Duke, right? Yeah. And unfortunately, I still believe that Duke probably was the best team in that regional, not how they played, but overall the season's resume. But that doesn't matter come tournament time. UConn was fantastic. The pitching for UConn, unbelievable. What was the final score last night? Did Oklahoma get on the board?
Yeah, they got one. Because the good old announcer said UConn hasn't shut out a team since yada yada in the NCAA tournament, and then immediately like a double and a single drives in the runs. Like, yep, that's about right.
So UConn was fantastic. They shut down Duke on Friday. They shut down Oklahoma on Saturday. They dropped the Sunday rematch with Oklahoma, but then they took care of business on Monday in very easily. But I turned it off by the 6th inning because they were up big. So UConn really impressive. Duke kind of, I don't know where their bats went. Their momentum that they had lit up the ACC tournament, and they got out to Norman, and the bats just went silent. They were getting a couple hits here and there, but they weren't able to string anything together. And I really believed they could come out of the losers bracket. Nick, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on that Norman regional?
Yeah, just kind of disappointed in Duke. I really thought that they were going to come out, and we talked about it when we were previewing the regional. Like, Duke is the strongest team. Maybe this was a gift that they were not like a low hosting seed, that they're a high 2 seed somewhere. And we all thought that Oklahoma was, the worst hosting team. But, Oklahoma didn't make it out of it. And we really didn't, except maybe Micah, didn't really consider UConn all that much. They were off to a very bad start in the beginning of the season. They really didn't get hot until conference play began. And they're on this incredible run to supers. And, this UConn program has really shown what they can do, even starting off bad. Like, you go back the last 2 or 3 years, they've made a lot of noise. I believe they came out of the College Park Regional in Maryland 2 years ago and went to supers. Yeah. So that UConn program is taking advantage of what they got. Like, I'm very impressed with them. But, with Duke, I think I I don't know. I guess the ride was just over. I think, all the momentum just kind of died out of nowhere. But, I think there's still a lot to be proud of. ACC tournament champs, you top 15 all year, big wins all year. Duke baseball is now a program where you don't really, I think we don't question it, but I think the nation won't question Duke baseball as like a legitimate thing. It's always Duke basketball, but Duke baseball is a legit thing now. So it sucks that they didn't advance. I think we all thought that they would have and had a nice, decent ride to Omaha, but just wasn't meant to be this year, I guess.
Yeah, they have a lot to be proud of. That's a special group. I loved covering them. They gave me all this access. Unfortunately, a lot of the guys I love to cover are leaving, including Chase Cruson, who entered the transfer portal today. I confirmed that with him. And then, of course, Chris Pollard is in consideration for the South Carolina job. That doesn't necessarily mean they can pull him away, but that would be a very big loss for the program. Because it could lead to the two. I mean, KJ and AJ are potential first round picks in a couple of years, and they could be gone if their coach leaves. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Duke is in a bit of a fork in the road here. But Micah, what were your thoughts on the Norman Regional before we move on to Tallahassee?
I mean, this UConn program is special, right? I think the most frustrating part, Monty, and we talked about a little bit yesterday on that, little just off the cuff show we did. I think Duke just kind of ran into this. Like, I think the disappointing part for me with Duke was the loss to Oklahoma, because like the UConn game, I mean, they just ran into fantastic pitching, and UConn. I mean, Nick obviously alluded to it, right? This is a program that's been to more super regionals than half the ACC in the last 3 years.
Well, and it was one clutch hit also because remember it was Gabe Nard was able to work out of a difficult, or seemingly looked like he was going to work out of it, and it was like a 111 hitter who was only playing because the primary catcher was sick.
Yeah,
and he got a 2 RBI single, and that basically was it.
Yeah, I mean, UConn was. I mean, again, they did what they needed to win. They never did anything like minus last night's Oklahoma game. There was never a point where I'm like, wow, this UConn program is just dominating everybody in the field.
Yeah.
So they kind of just ran into a spot where Monty, we'd seen it, right? We've seen some stretches where Duke, I mean, the Florida State series at home, right? I mean, obviously that Sunday game went a little bit differently, but those first two weren't great, right? We've seen stretches from Duke where they kind of just go quiet for a little while.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that Florida State series because I think that was Santucci's best start of the year. It was the only time he didn't walk anyone, unless he didn't the other day in 2 innings, but it was his best start and he took a loss.
Yeah. And I think too, like, Monty, we had talked about it, and it's not fair to hold that over Duke and, again, say that it's fluky they won the championship because everyone played in the same ballpark. But a lot of those home runs we saw, especially the ones on Tuesday night in that ACC tournament, don't leave the yard at pretty much anywhere but Charlotte and maybe the couch. Some of those balls barely cleared, Monty. They were going out.
Which ones are you talking about? Because
the short porch ones. What do you mean which ones?
I don't know what game you were watching because the ones that I saw Zach Morris hit, he absolutely crushed those.
That was later on in the tournament. I'm talking about that Tuesday.
That was Tuesday night. Oh, did he only hit the grand slam on? No,
there was the short porch one that, yes, it looked like it's crushed, Monty, but when it's 40 feet in from every other wall, it's not that
I'm going to have to rewatch because I think you're misremembering that particular game.
No, because we talked about it in the press box, and I was only in the press box one night.
You weren't even in the press box that night. What are you talking about?
Oh, my gosh. Anyways, whatever. Regardless of what you want to say, it's a bandbox in Charlotte. They were hitting bombs in Charlotte, and then it did not translate over to a less hitter-friendly park in Norman. So that's all I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, like, some of it didn't translate over, unfortunately, because Duke had a lot of hard hit balls that went to the warning track. They just didn't get out. They had a lot of loud outs in the games in the moments I was able to watch Duke.
And remember, they should have been set up to handle that very well because their home ballpark is very,
I agree.
Yeah. So that's a good point, and they should have been better set up to create offense without the home run.
Yeah. So it's frustrating, right? I mean, and Monty, you alluded to it. I mean, I think the program I'm most concerned about this offseason is Duke, and that's not a shot at Pollard and anything that they've built. That's the thing is, I mean, if I'm Pollard, Monty, I know we love the Duke program, but let's just be honest. Let's have honest conversation for a minute here. The investment from the rest of the conference still seems like it might be lacking. I mean, we try to defend Coombs as much as we want to. We all know that facility is the worst in the conference.
They've already committed to renovations. They're literally going to happen.
But what is the renovations?
I know. I was just pointing that out, that they're not just doing nothing though. That's better than,
That's I mean,
and
I can't say what I was going to say on the air because it involves my employer. But I as a college athlete, I was promised a facility my freshman year, and it didn't come until my senior year. So until the stuff starts, I'm always hesitant with college programs saying we're investing.
Well, they're literally supposed to break ground this
I hope so. That's all I'm saying. Is, again,
you're right, but I'm worried about the program because of if Pollard's there, I have full faith in it. But if he's not, and facilities, investing in the facility is going to play a big factor in keeping him.
And that's what I was going to. Are the resources, because Pollard also needs. I mean, I don't know how accurate this is. These are just talking to some parents around the conference. This weekend I was talking to some Georgia Tech parents. Like, there's a concern even with Georgia Tech, right, from a standpoint of investing in the quality of coaches. Like, because obviously so many schools are worried about NIL. It's like, these coaches are like, if you want to have the right staff, you're going to need to be able to, like, again, I mean, Durham's not super expensive, but like, when we were talking about Atlanta, right? Like, it's not cheap to live in Atlanta, Georgia. So, being able to make sure that you can pay your staff well. I mean, it's going to be interesting because we know South Carolina is going to dump back a cash truck back for whoever they decide to go after. So it's just a matter of I don't think Pollard's in it for his own personal money. It's more of, what can he have from me? Because I've seen South Carolina's facilities, Monty. They are 20 times better than Duke's.
And they are they going to pull the check out? Because there's a question about that. They're going to be targeting a coach from the ACC. We know they're after Walt. We know they're after McDonald. We know they're after Pollard. It's going to be interesting to see if they're able to fork out the money. Which
one, Monty? If South Carolina's AD came to you right now and said, Monty Taylor, you covered the ACC all year. You did a great job. What coach should we go hire from the conference? Who would you say?
Pollard.
Yeah, that's my brain too, is I would say Pollard or Walt. Not a shot at Dan, but there are some question marks about what's been going on at Louisville. And I still don't I don't blame Dan for those. That's more of an investment thing in my opinion. But again, like, it's interesting to see what that brings for Duke.
Nick, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think Duke is now not only starting to invest in baseball, but like, I think overall in their sports. I mean, they've put a lot of investment in football. Like, once, what's his name, who just left?
Riley Leonard?
No, not Leonard. Their coach.
Oh, the coach. Oh.
At A&M right now.
I don't remember who their coach was. The last Duke coach I remember was Cutcliffe.
Elko.
Oh, Elko. Yeah,
Mike Elko.
Mike Elko. Thank you. Once he left, they made I know Mike and I will talk about this in the fall or when we preview football, but I think they made a great hire. But I think if they show Pollard that, hey, this is coming and you've been here through the ride, we want you to continue with the ride. I feel like Pollard's the type of guy to stay for the ride. I think he wants to see the investments. I think he wants to see the facilities improved, get the players that he wants. I think big things are coming for Duke, just as a whole, as like an athletic department, because it's weird. Ever since Kay left, you've been seeing a lot of improvements outside of Duke basketball. Like, the baseball has been unreal, and I think if Pollard just seeds that, he's going to want to stay. I think if they pull out the checkbook, anything competitive with South Carolina, I think he'll stay.
And I'm not sure South Carolina is going to pull out the big checkbook either, because they have a history of not paying a ton of money for
right.
guys, even though they expect a top-notch coach. So interesting there.
Hey, don't tell Sin that in the CBC group chat now.
Well, AJ's the one that has told me that. So it's funny that it's one South Carolina fan versus the other. But anyway, let's move on to Tallahassee, because we could spend forever talking about Duke baseball. I know I could. Let's talk Tallahassee. I mean, Florida State 3-0, fairly dominant. I think they
called it.
No. I predicted exactly how the regional was going to go, Nick. So I don't want to hear you saying, "Oh, you
literally stopped me when I said Florida State's going to cruise through this, and you said no. Wait a minute.
Saying they cruised, Alabama. Saying they cruised was never something I said was wrong. I said that there are difficult teams all the way across the board. You can look at my graphic that got released before the tournament actually started playing, Nick, and I had 1 being Florida State in a sweep, 3-0, 2 being UCF, 3 being Stetson, and 4th being Alabama. And you guys all called me crazy for saying that I thought Stetson and UCF were better. So I don't want to hear about you called it. You did not call it because you said I was crazy for the Stetson comment.
Regional, you did not.
I think both you guys did a great job, and I did not.
Monty,
You know who else? You know who else did a great job? Carson Dorsey and Jamie Arnold. Fantastic. I think Jamie ended up being the most outstanding player. I think it should have been Carson Dorsey with what he did against Stetson on Friday night. 8 2/3 innings. Absolutely phenomenal. Florida State, they beat Stetson. They beat UCF twice. They don't even have to face Alabama, who got eliminated first. Tallahassee gets to host a super regional, which we knew they would because they were number 8 seed. So if they won, they would host. Micah, let's hear your thoughts on this Florida State baseball team. And by the way, James Tibbs didn't get a hit this weekend.
And that's what I was going to say. So Monty's that's twice now. I was going to bring up something, and Monty said it right before I said it. So
I apologize.
We got to stop talking before the show, Monty, because then we're just going to have all the same stuff. But no, I mean, I think, again, at the end of the day, Florida State was dominant. Is it fair to say that they were the most dominant team in the ACC this weekend? I think so, right? You know, they never even really – I mean, even that UCF game – well, I guess the Stetson game was kind of close, wasn't it?
A little bit. I think it ended up being like 7-2, maybe.
Yeah, like I mean, there was never, I guess, a doubt though, right? Because even like the UCF game, like UCF took a little bit of an early lead, but it never really resulted to much. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, Florida State just kind of they cruised to it. I heard the atmosphere was awesome, obviously, which is what we expect from Tallahassee in the postseason. It's always great to see, and you know, I think that. You know, Florida State probably feels pretty good about what's in front of them right now. I mean,
it was 7-2. I'm proud of my memory.
Look at that, Monty. Yeah, I mean, I was so busy counting home runs, I didn't remember final scores. I could see how many home runs were hit in that game. But all 253 of them. But you know, it's just overall was a very, very dominant performance.
Nick, you got anything to add before we move on to Greenville?
Just what a performance by Jamie Arnold. I mean, that was electric. His immaculate inning was cool to see. I had to go back on Twitter and someone just said, take 2 minutes out of your day and watch this immaculate inning. And I did. And I don't regret it. That was awesome.
I love that because it's only 9 pitches. It's so easy to put in one video. Right. If you didn't watch the immaculate inning, then you're the worst.
Right.
Well, I'm the worst. I have not watched it. Monty was the one that broke it to me on the podcast we did that night. I had no idea. You know, maybe if you tell these teams stop hitting home runs every 2 minutes, I would have been able to actually watch baseball.
Well,
you put that on yourself, Micah. You know what you're getting.
By the way, we're giving Micah crap for this, but great job. Fantastic job. And I would never have done that to myself, but Mike is a sicko and does a lot of things most people wouldn't do. But great job, Micah.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing. Is one of the Georgia calm people was like, "Why are you just staring at your phone literally?" It was like, "Watch the pitch, back down on my phone. Watch a pitch, back down on my phone." I'm like, "I'm the one doing this." He goes, "Oh, you poor soul." I was like, "Yep, that would be me."
That's nuts.
I didn't tell him I did it to myself though. I just blamed College Baseball Central. So sorry, Noah, my bad.
There you go. Well, we go to Greenville. Obviously a disappointing result for Wake. They are the first team eliminated. They lose to VCU. Christian Gordon, absolutely fantastic, 13 strikeouts. And then they go to Brian Curley, which probably ultimately cost VCU any other the rest of the weekend, probably because he normally throws starter innings in relief, and they burned him to make sure they held on to that 1-0 victory. And then I actually left on Saturday with a 6-4 lead for Wake Forest with Michael Massey on the mound. I felt really good about it. Halfway there, one of you texted, and I was a bit surprised about what happened. Nick, I'm going to start with you. I know you had a nice video rant, and everyone loved it. What are your feelings 4 days later?
Just still about the same. I mean, you know, I don't know why Walter does this, not putting in Cole Rowland to start the 9th inning. He did it against NC State. He just left Zach Johnson out on the mound, and then he loaded the bases. And then when it was too little too late. Then he put Cole in, and he did the exact same thing in the regional against ECU. I love Michael, but Michael has been on every part of the spectrum this year: starter, reliever, injured list, all of that. And I question putting him in a save situation when you have one of the most feared closers in college baseball. Like, I don't get that thought process. I think you have to go Cole there.
I don't know. Before the tournament, you seemed pretty confident about having Michael Massey back there.
Not in a close situation. I was thinking that he would come in like a relief situation, not in a closing situation. Like that is Cole's job. Like, that's been his job all year, and then all of a sudden, it has not been since the NC State series. I don't understand why it's been like that. You could blame the bats too. That 1-0 game against VCU was, bad, but you can't really blame. As much as I want to blame the bats in game 2 against ECU, they did show up when they needed to.
They didn't.
And they came up with an insurance run too.
No, they didn't. The bats did nothing. They got walked half the time.
I mean, they got clutch hitting.
They got one clutch hit.
They got 6 runs, right? The runs came in, but they should
have tried a little harder to run up the pitch count once they realized Christian Gordon was throwing elite stuff. They should have tried to, because he was able to go 7 1/3 or 7 innings.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to you definitely can blame the bats throughout this whole regional appearance. Yes, you can, but I feel like you put Cole in, you win that game, there's a legit shot they come out of that regional. Because, ECU almost did it. I said in my video when it was going to be, before the Wake Forest ECU matchup, I said, 7% of teams that go 0-1 do make it. I feel like these two teams had that 7% going for them. Well, it didn't happen. ECU was damn close to getting that 7% on their favor.
I thought they had it when they were up. When they went up 5-2 or 6-2.
5-2, yeah, 5-2. Then the 3-run.
5-2, and they ultimately,
yeah. But you got to shout out Evansville. What a story it's been for them. Their pitching was great. They had clutch hitting. That 3-run bomb was great. But yeah, Wake. It was tough to say goodbye to the guys again. Like I said earlier, I was kind of telling you that, Monty, before Micah hopped on. But they'll do well. They'll do well in life wherever they go. I'm sure. Yeah. I'm will be a top 10 pick. Chase will be a top 10.
Top 10 pick. Yep.
Yeah.
They both might be top 5.
Yeah. So I'm hoping one of them accidentally falls a little bit, maybe to 13, and play for the Giants.
No, they're not getting past the Nationals. They're not getting past the Nationals, because I hope one of them falls to 10, and I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah.
But it wasn't meant to be for Wake this year. I feel good about the arms that will be coming back. They're full of talent, just not a lot of experience. I think they got a ton of experience this year. So whoever's that rotation next year, whoever's in the relief.
And Ben Shinosky have supposedly entered the transfer portal.
Shinosky did.
Yeah.
That's a little surprising, since I saw him yesterday and I talked to him. But I did also talk to Crawford. He will be that's a fact. He will be transferring.
I'm assuming somebody who I feel like D1 has to have access to the actual portal with how they get some of this information. But
do you guys want access to it? I have access to it.
I don't have access to it, but my brother's fiance is a D2 coach in lacrosse, so she has access to it. So she texts me these updates a lot. But
yeah, I just saw it was updated on one of the lists. So Micah, let's hear your thoughts on Greenville. Obviously, the real quick thing, I do want to give props to the ECU fans who had their megaphones banned, and then they somehow managed to tape paper ones together inside the park.
I saw that.
They did that in Charlottesville last year, Monty. Do you not remember that?
I do not remember that.
That's why I thought they were allowed last year. When you told me they weren't, I was like, what? And then I found out that's what they did. Was they just did
made their own.
I love that.
No, I mean ECU fans are obviously great, right? You know, Nick, of course, made me have to tweet from my personal account just to underneath the troll move at ECU just to save myself from being.
It's not a troll. It's just a
ECU
fact. Like it's just a fact. Like I'm not gonna get my hopes up for ECU. Like you got to prove it to me. You've got to prove it to me. You know, I wasn't trying to be mean. Like it's just a fact. They haven't made it to Omaha, and this was supposed to be their best team they've ever had.
Yeah, you had that on. You had that ready to roll, though. You can't tell me that was not a little.
When they went up 6-5, I had it ready.
But, anyways, no. I mean, I think let's just call it what it is. I think that was a failure of a season. I mean, I don't want to.
Preseason number one, yeah. I mean,
preseason number one, and I mean, this is again. These are all kids, right? And Chase Burns is going to go on and have a great career. I'm not even questioning that. But your best players kind of failed to show up when it mattered most. Kurtz was fine. In his defense, he got walked or whatever in that ninth inning. So he had the fielder's choice that he beat out. So at least he can hustle down the line to keep the inning alive. But I mean, normally, right, when you see Nick Kurtz coming on with the bases loaded, you don't expect that. You know, and he wasn't super great, obviously, in the game against VCU either. He didn't give him. I think he walked twice in that game, so it wasn't like they gave him a ton of chances. But Chase Burns, let's just call it what it was not very good. He wasn't bad, right? Like he didn't have this terrible start, but he was outpitched by Trey Savage, plain and simple. And I agree with you, Nick. The question mark behind not going to Cole, obviously it's hindsight 2020. But what did we see last night with Chapel Hill? Dalton Pence was left in by Forbes because Dalton Pence was the closer. Where was that same type of mentality with Cole? Let Cole go do his job.
Right.
Massey is not that guy. And again, the thing too is Wake probably could have used Massey the next day if they would have won. So that's why I was even more surprised that they put Massey in a spot like LSU going to Gage Jump last night kind of made sense because it was win or go home. And there really is no game. You have a week off or a couple days off before you play again. Where in Wake's case, obviously it was win or go home, but you're also playing tomorrow if you win. So I don't know. It was definitely interesting, frustrating for everybody, I think, right? I mean, at least that regional was fun. I mean, obviously America's team moves on in that regional. That was always great. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just frustrating because we had a chance to really have. I mean, let's just call it what it is, right? Who's super thrilled about Evansville heading to Knoxville, comparatively to if
Tennessee
Chase Burns,
fans. Tennessee fans,
yeah, true. Compared to Chase Burns headed to Knoxville,
or Trey Savage,
or Trey, yeah, ECU fans or Wake fans, because ECU fans, bigger fan base, right? We just call it what it is. They pack their house every single night. Wake fans are really, really passionate and would have showed out as much as they could have. Ticket prices for those would have been astronomical. They're still high, but they're not the same as what they would have been. And I can't wait to see Evansville. I'm telling you right now, I think Evansville will at least win one in that regional. But at the same time, it's again, when it comes to the Wake Forest, I mean, they're the only team in the ACC to not win an NCAA tournament game. That made the tournament, obviously.
Yep, that's crazy. Wow. And by the way, all three of the top pitchers for the MLB draft are out now because Hagen Smith in Arkansas obviously got eliminated. So Hagen Smith, Chase Burns, Trey Savage, all at home early, unlike last year when we had the two best college pitchers go head-to-head in Omaha. But anyway, moving along here to Chapel Hill. That was the last one that none of us were at. Micah and I both contemplated going for last night's game. I think we got a little bit of FOMO, but ultimately made the right decision for our physical health. But what a regional it was. How many there was 2 walk-offs on Friday. There was not a walk-off last night, even though UNC hosted. They were the away team. It was a wild regional. Micah, let's start with you this time. Give me your thoughts on that regional and the grit UNC had to show to survive not just LSU twice or 3 times. Well, they had to win twice out of 3 times, but also to come back after going down 3 runs to Long Island.
Yeah, UNC didn't look great all weekend, and yet still found ways to beat a very, very good LSU team. I mean, they piss away a chance to blow the doors off of LSU early, or at least give themselves a nice little head start by swinging at a ball. Zuna really rough at bat there, especially when they were struggling to find the zone. It was, I mean, the atmosphere there was electric. It sounds like it's going to be similar this weekend, which I'm very excited for. What are you smiling about, Monty?
Nothing. I just did a Jake and was laughing in the middle of your talking. Just
wow. I tried to trade Nick for Jake, and now you're trying to become Jake. Jeez, maybe Nick, maybe we're going to trade Monty for Jake.
I'm sorry. I normally hold my composure better, but yeah, continue. I'm sorry.
But no, I mean, this was. I mean,
I'm not a corner piece in this franchise.
What'd you say?
I said I'm just glad I'm not a corner piece in this franchise. So you're just going to trade me away. So that's cool.
I've seen teams trade away their best players. It happens all the time.
As a Pats fan, I can also tell you.
I mean, literally, your star running back was the best player on his other team.
Who?
So he's a 49ers fan.
I know. Let's focus here. Lock it in. Lock it in.
Just like the comment you just sent us. Did he lock it in too? But anyways, no, I mean, just the fact that they overcame. I mean, they did what they needed to do, right? You know, they came up with a clutch hit when they needed it. And just again shows to the resilience of this. The pitching staff was phenomenal. I mean, they pitched as well as they possibly could have,
considering they lost 2 Friday night starters.
Yeah, and again, I mean, they caught a Long Island. Like, I mean, I maybe it's not fair to give them the free the mulligan, but I really do think that when they jumped out on LIU, they just, especially in that 9th inning, they didn't think that LIU was capable of that. I mean, they were literally 1 strike away from winning by 2 runs or whatever it was, 3 runs, and then the doors just fall off. It becomes tied, and then the 3-run home run gives them the lead. It's just like, okay, well, when it rains, it pours, I guess, in Chapel Hill. But again, to have the resilience to not only come back, but I mean, they do it all with 0 outs or maybe just 1 out recorded.
It feels like 0 or 1 outs, yeah.
Yeah, like maybe they sacrificed 1 guy over, but like that was it. I mean, they literally just, all right, let's go back to work.
And then Gallagher just went off. Gallagher,
by the way, I don't know how many teams in this tournament, even in ACC or non-ACC, overcome something like that when you think you're home free. And I mean, just to call it what it is, not many people, like all of us talked about, I hyped up Wofford, but I don't think a single one of us gave LIU any shot of beating Carolina. And sure enough, they're 3 outs away from doing it.
Yep.
So, you know, it was really, really interesting. I mean, again, resilience is the key. And again, of the regionals that were hosted by ACC teams, Monty, I was most surprised by the atmosphere in Chapel Hill. Like, not to insult UNC fans, I've seen it full, but I've never heard it. It kind of reminds me of what we talk about with UVA, right? Like, they fill the ballpark, but until postseason baseball comes around, it's almost like a church.
Right. It compared to some other places like
yeah. But again, it's not like empty.
It's not
like, there's churches that are full, but don't, like, you know, they're not the gospel churches that are constantly singing. It's, you know, quietly do quiet prayer. So, you know, it was the atmosphere was awesome, and they did a great job keeping LSU fans out as much as they possibly could, which I was, again, concerned about. So overall, I mean, and also too, I tweeted it today, just to see how much Forbes loves those guys. Like, to be honest, when I see him, I always kind of think, like, I always never liked him. I always thought he was kind of just like such a, I don't know, he just gave me a weird vibe. I don't know about how to best put it. But you can tell he genuinely cares about his guys, which was really cool to see.
Yeah. That's great insight. Nick, what are your thoughts before we move on to some of the regionals we actually covered ourselves?
Yeah, I think Micah put it perfectly. UNC was resilient. That was a very fun regional to keep up with. I mean, you had everything. You had the walk-offs, the Game 7. The atmosphere was great. You know, I got to give credit to UNC, man. I think a lot of people believe that they got a raw deal out of who they got in their regional, LSU, Wofford. I mean, that's very, very tough. And the fact that they did it is nothing to just like, turn your head at. That's a tough regional. And, give credit where credit's due. They pulled it out against, one of the hottest teams in the country, the defending national champs. I mean, that was huge for UNC. I was really happy for them. That was great. More representation in the ACC through super regionals. We went 5 for 5 and in regional hosts that made it through. So that was huge. Vance Honeycutt, although, was awesome. I got to give him a shout out. Vance Honeycutt was elite in that regional as well. So congrats to them.
Yeah. I think some people were questioning why people who hadn't paid attention to UNC all year were wondering where Jackson Vanderbrake was. They did not know that he didn't have the best start to the year, and Gavin Gallagher has been elite, and it's hard to keep that kind of a freshman on the bench. And Gavin Gallagher this weekend had a breakout weekend in the 7-hole. Fantastic for him. But now let's move on. We're going to start with one of Micah's regions here. We're going to talk about Georgia Tech. One of our favorite teams to cover this year. They are done. They lose 9-0 on Friday to UNC Wilmington. The offense is pretty much non-existent. And then Saturday morning, they eliminate Army 4-2. And then on Sunday, they come back and beat UNC Wilmington to finally set up our Georgia Tech game on Sunday night. They go up. Unfortunately, they do not hold on. Micah, woof, woof.
I still have nightmares of that.
I know. I can't imagine. I'm sorry, man, that you had to deal with that.
I feel so bad for you, dude. I'm sorry.
It really wasn't that bad. I mean,
should I start with Nick, though, since you covered, and get Nick's thoughts first and then go to you? Or let's do that. Nick, give your thoughts real quick, and then we'll turn to Micah for his
yeah,
break.
I'm sure Micah will have a lot, so I won't have much to say. It was a tough job for Georgia Tech to get it done. And, we talked about how their pitching was getting better and better and better, and ultimately it was the relief pitching that ended up blowing it for them. They had a chance when they went down in the bottom of the 10th and still couldn't cash it in. So, yeah, I mean, they had a great season. There's nothing to look over. I feel good about the future if they can keep their young guys there like Drew Burrs and everybody else. I feel, as a state guy, I feel pretty good going to the Georgia, but we'll talk about that later. But, I mean, Tech gave them all they had. Like a 5-2 lead. It stinks that what we harped on in the beginning of the season, what we thought was getting better, ultimately it was their downfall.
Yeah, and shout out Cam Jones, who was phenomenal on Sunday in the game against UNC Wilmington. I was required to delete my tweet about it because he came out for the 7th inning, so I didn't end up reposting that. But Micah, it is all you now. Talk about our wonderful Yellow Jackets.
We talked about it yesterday, right, Monty? I think the most frustrating part was we kind of prepared. I'll give a message on that too, Josh. But for me, I think we talked about it a little bit yesterday. I don't know if it was on the little makeshift show we did or not, but it's not the fact that Georgia Tech lost. We knew that it was going to be an uphill battle with how good, not fair, right? But I did expect them to lose game 1 against UNC Wilmington because RJ Sales, the starter for the Seahawks, was just that good. I mean, he was the best pitcher in that regional, and it wasn't even close. So seeing RJ, do what he did, I wasn't overly concerned about Georgia Tech. But it's the fact that, I mean, we all, and by we, I was fortunate enough to be sitting with some Georgia Tech staffers, could taste a win for the Yellow Jackets on Sunday night. I was already starting to prepare spending my Monday in Athens. And it all just kind of, and it wasn't anything major. It just kind of a solo home run in the 8th, then a solo home run in the 9th. And then they swing a ball. Peyton Green swings at ball 4 that would have walked in the game-winning run. And that ball wasn't even close. I watching it from where I was, I thought he was protecting. I went back and watched it, and I was like, I mean, I'd rather you, I guess, protect than take ball or strike 3 looking. But I don't know. That pitch did not look like it was anywhere close to the zone. So obviously that's frustrating. like Nick mentioned, they had a chance to obviously then tie it or do some damage in the 9th or 10th inning, and they didn't do it. A throwing error by John Giesler is what kind of set up that Georgia inning, because all 3 runs that were scored in the 9th inning were 10th inning were all unearned by Georgia. I mean, we were this close to getting what I think a lot of us wanted, which was if Georgia Tech walks off Georgia in Georgia's ballpark, that would have been just chef's kiss, and we didn't get it. So, that was obviously really frustrating from that standpoint. And Georgia Tech's offense was just all early. After that, it really wasn't much. I mean, the Von Lackey home run came in the 3rd inning, I think, 4th inning, somewhere in that ballpark. And then they did nothing the rest of the night, minus again that 1 run late in the 10th. But that was kind of Georgia was giving them that run because they didn't necessarily care about it. They just wanted to make sure they didn't give up the lead. So really frustrating overall to see that type of performance from Georgia Tech when, the way they came out too was quite impressive because, Georgia strikes first in the 1st inning. Patel's a little shaky to start. And then, Drew Burris leads off with a triple and then kind of gets, or I think he batted second, but he gets a triple going in the 1st, and then he's brought in later that at bat or that inning. So it's frustrating, right? And then in regards to Hall, I mean, you can't fire a guy like that. I mean, he got you to the NCAA tournament. I know Georgia Tech program wants more, but Hall's the reason why those standards were even kind of set. Personally, I would be shocked if he's back after next year though, because his contract is up. I would assume that Georgia Tech's not going to extend it this year, which is a very common thing. If they don't extend it, that's kind of the way of like, I'm predicting a Gilmore type of thing, a one final year hoorah where you appreciate what he did and you kind of go from there. Is that exactly what's going to happen? No idea. I do know that I think if Georgia Tech decides to move on from Hall, that I hope the Florida State legend, as Monty has told me many a time, Mr. James Ramsey, is the one that gets that position because he is a big reason why that young roster exists. And I know he can coach. I mean, it's kind of neat when you watch the games, not that he is the acting head coach, because obviously Hall does stuff behind the scenes, but the vocal guy, the one that's constantly out having meetings with, hitters or stepping out to set up positioning for the defensive scheme. It's 90% of the time it is James Ramsey stepping out and doing so. And he's got the young energy. He brings the juice to this team. So I think that he would be a great choice if they decide to. But again, I am not in the camp that Hall has to go because he's the reason this program even is what it is. And he got you to the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's not like he's missed the tournament 5 straight years and this is like, okay, enough's enough. I mean, I don't know what Georgia Tech's expectations are, but not many programs in the country are Omaha caliber teams every single year. So getting to the tournament, in my opinion, is considered a good season for Georgia Tech. So
I like it. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to what do you say we move on to the Raleigh Regional? NC State, they win the regional. They beat JMU on Friday night. On Saturday, they take care of South Carolina, ultimately helping put one of the nails in the coffin of Mark Kingston in Columbia. And then on Sunday, they end up having a rematch with JMU, not South Carolina, because JMU put the final coffin in Mark Kingston's job that afternoon. And then after a pretty great effort from Mancini of JMU, NC State survives with relative ease, I think, in that regional, and they advance to the Athens Super Regional. We're going to start with Micah this time before we go to Nick, since Nick should have more to say since he was there, but we know Micah likes to talk, so let's see what Micah's got.
Real quick, they played Bryant the first game.
They played Bryant. Thank you. JMU played the 2-3. Thank you. So NC State got to play every team in their regional.
Yes. Thank
you. Micah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm glad NC State fans got introduced to the Kingsport Axeman legend, Mike Mancini. He's got a great choice in walk-up song. At least he did last summer. Hello, Opal. But anyways, no, I mean, I'm not going to do a victory lap, but I'm glad that I did not get old takes exposed from my Tuffy Talk conversation, Nick. where I said I think NC State should be able to win this series with ease, or win this regional with ease, and that I wasn't overly concerned about South Carolina. And what did I even say, Nick? I thought JMU was more of a threat than South Carolina was, and sure enough, I mean, I predicted the wrong winner in game one of the. I said that I flipped what would happen with JMU and South Carolina. That was the only thing in the Tuffy talk I got wrong. But I mean, what I saw from NC State this weekend and what I saw from Georgia this weekend, I like what NC State's got going into Athens. We'll just put it that way.
All right. I like it. All right, Nick, tell us what's good with Raleigh.
Man, I love that city so much. It was so good to be back. No, again, thank you, Monty, for helping me out, getting credentialed and stuff. Everything went super smooth, so that was great.
Lost your firstborn.
The Doak was rocking. Wolfpack Nation definitely showed up. I even said it both times in the press conferences that I went to. That biggest crowd I've ever seen, the loudest I've ever heard it. It beat the 2013 Super Regionals that they hosted against Rice. It was so much fun, so excellent. Met a lot of great people. Got to meet the first family of Apex, North Carolina, the Highfill family. So super nice. Got to meet a lot of cool families. The Dudens, who else did I meet? I think I met the Sosa family, all so much fun. So, and shout out to Greg, invited me to a tailgate. We met up at one of the parking decks. We had a great time, so much fun. But NC State looked really good. I was very impressed with the starting pitching throughout the weekend. Sam did well. Dominic did well, and so did Whitaker. They all played very well. They all went 5+ innings, which is what you want out of your 3 starters in the regionals. The pitching script could not have gone better for NC State. You used 2 on Friday. You used the 3 guys you had lined up on Saturday. And then I think you used 3 again on Sunday, using Derek Smith twice in the regionals. So to close out the games, which was perfect. Everything went NC State's way there in the Raleigh regional. But I got to shout out JMU. I mean, Mancini, oh my goodness. Everybody in the press box just kept saying, why are we pitching to this kid? Even after the double, it was like, what the heck? Why are we still pitching to him? Like that was stupid, because a run scored and made it 5-3. But shout out to him. They never backed down. And their pitcher, I'm blanking on his name, who pitched before in the South Carolina game, went the entire game, went into the bullpen in the 8th inning when it kind of looked like things were getting a little rocky for JMU. We're like, oh my God, this is insane. This is absolutely insane if this kid is going to come back in.
Also a former Kingsport Axeman.
Yeah. I mean, the Kingsport Axemen showed up for JMU this
And the
regional.
Kingsport Axemen on the NC State Wolfpack should have given them a heads up on Mike Mancini, a.k.a. Hollis Fanning.
Yeah, Hollis Fanning should have said something, dude. I don't know. But no, it was great. Alec Makarevich won most outstanding player of the regional. He had a great regional. Serrano had a great regional. Brandon Butterworth's defense was unbelievable. Turned Western Carolina Catamount, former SoCon. Yes, Micah.
No, I'm just going. That was the player I said that I expected to have a little
did
weekend from. So
let me tell you something, Micah, because you'll appreciate this. We were voting on best position players throughout the regional, and everyone thought, South Carolina shortstop played very well, had himself a great weekend. But Butterworth's defense was, superb. Turned amazing double plays. He was lights out defensively. So he ultimately won the shortstop position. So
good for him.
Overall, everything went according to script for NC State. Pitching, hitting, everyone played well. It was fantastic.
Would you say it was smooth as butter, his defense?
Smoother than butter. That was amazing. His
Oh, wow.
defense was like
You want
that
to know
double
what's
play.
You want to know what's smoother than butter, Monty? Butterworth.
Oh,
Oh,
you know, it'd be really funny if somebody put a meme of him on the Mrs. Butterworth syrup thing. I just thought of that. So, copyright.
Explicit word, you, Monty.
All right. We'll move on to my regional before we head back to Micah's second.
Oh, it's his regional now, Nick. It's not the Charlottesville regional. It's the Monty regional. Got it. I'm just kidding.
I literally said right after that your regional for your other regional. For
Did you? I didn't hear
yeah.
that. My
You
bad.
cut. You
Yeah.
started. You already had started to go in on me.
Nick's been replaced with you, Monty. I'm cutting you off now. Nick can actually talk. Nick, you're allowed to talk as much as you want. Monty can't, though.
Virginia.
okay. I'll just talk about seed oils.
I'm muting Nick.
No.
Virginia, they go 3-0. The offense never really explodes for them. They took advantage of some miscues in the 9th inning of the final game, but the story of the regional for UVA, and I can't believe I'm saying this after what we've seen all year. The story of the regional for UVA was pitching. Micah must have been stunned when he saw that Jay Wolfuck went 8 innings when he looked up from the Athens regional.
I'm trying to see if I can wake up from that dream, Monty. I'm trying to pinch myself.
Yeah.
Did it actually happen?
Yeah, it was a crazy game. Pico Cone on the other side, his high for the season was 4 innings. He went 7, and it was a really close game until everything just started to fall apart. In the 8th inning of the regional final, they were able to get Dakota Jordan on base, and he stole second, and he had it stolen. And unfortunately, he overslid the bag. And a funny story about that is we're sitting in the press conference, and somebody asked Griff O'Farrell if the plan was just to hold the tag and hope he comes off. And Griff said, well, that and there was nobody covering third. So I had to hold the tag. Otherwise, he could just get up and run to third. And Jay Wolfuck said, who was supposed to cover third? And Griff goes, that was supposed to be you. And Jay's like, oh.
Wow.
So and Oak immediately was like, we'll be working on that in practice tomorrow. So that was a little funny moment, a little mistake that Jay did not field back up third base on that play, but really difficult situation for when Dakota Jordan overslid the bag with Hunter Hines up. And I was questioning the decision not to go to Angelo Tonis for a left-on-left matchup, but now we'll never know if that matters because of the base running mistake there. Just unfortunate. And then from there, I don't really understand what happened from there because Mississippi State defense all weekend, except for that walk-off play the night before, had been fantastic. And they just fell apart completely. Looking back at it, the Tyler Davis came in. It looked like he got squeezed a little bit and was not able to respond to that, respond well to that. He walked the first 2 batters, which I understand a lot of those pitches might have been strikes earlier in the night for whatever reason they weren't. But he kind of unraveled and gave up more earned runs in that inning than he had all season long. And Virginia wins 9-2 and they advance. They're going to face Kansas State. Nick, I'll start with you before I go to Micah because Micah's going to have some thoughts on Virginia. Some hot takes, I'm sure. Nick, what are your thoughts on Virginia?
I mean, yeah, something that we haven't seen this year was the pitching, and it showed up. And Jay Wolfuck going 8 innings, I mean, that was huge for Virginia. And I think what's big is that, man, they get to host Supers. It wasn't really, oh my God, why? Dude, why is there still darkness for
Florida
you?
Panthers are in the Stanley Cup, Canescatty. It's okay.
Come on.
Another day in darkness continues. I love that he always shows up to our show despite Miami being out. And he'll ask transfer questions that we're not going to cover in this show, unfortunately, but cracks me up. But go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so, I mean, Virginia gets to host Supers, which is fantastic for them. I hope the Boschers just
The dish.
light. The dish, I'm sorry, the Boschers UNC, my fault. The dish is rocking for you guys, so that's huge. I mean, credit to Virginia. We really didn't know. Like, we knew the bats were there. We knew the pitching was shaking. But did we all think that they were on the cusp of not even hosting? Like, we were starting to question that a little bit of even hosting. Now they get the benefit of hosting Supers. because Arizona, or no, I'm sorry, not Arizona.
Arkansas lost.
Arkansas
lost to SEMO before Virginia even took the field.
That's right. Yeah. So that was huge.
It would have been cool to see Virginia's offense go up against that Arkansas pitching staff, but
yeah.
And I think Micah wanted to go to Fayetteville. I think that's also
I
why
wanted to call the Who's, you know, instead of
the
Woo Pig
Who's.
Suey, you know.
Oh God.
A Woo Hoo Suey. I don't know.
I don't want to say
it.
I mean, guys, we got 4 of the 5 ACC teams remaining are all hosting supers, correct? I think the only one that's not is NC State. So, and I think some of us feel pretty good about State coming out of that.
Being you?
What's that?
I said some of us being you.
Maybe Micah. I don't know. I think there's a great shot of these teams advancing. I mean, a lot of them have the home field advantage. I think that's really huge. So credit to Virginia. I mean, getting to host supers is huge.
Yeah, Josh, I think he was actually changing the words to Pig Suey to suit Virginia. So it would be calling the Who's, not the Hogs. So it was Woo Hoo Suey.
Yeah. That was the whole point. You know, I was calling the Who's. Woo Hoo Suey.
Yeah.
Cavaliers.
So, Micah, what are your thoughts on the University of Virginia subverting your expectations?
I want to read a stat, Monty, that makes my heart so happy. Virginia's pitching staff, 27 innings pitched, obviously. You know, that makes sense. Checks out. Only 23 hits allowed. Only 5 walks issued. That's the big one for me.
Especially with
Woolfolk, and I mean even Blanco. That was Blanco's kind of Achilles heel. When he struggles, it's because he's walking guys,
which he normally doesn't. Which is funny because they would always talk about how few guys he walked, but then he'd walk like 3 people in the game.
Yeah, like he would again. He's not known for, but when he struggles, that's when it happens. And Savino has kind of had that tendency a little bit too, because again, he's still his pitch count gets worked up because he could. Fortunately, I don't think he's gotten his finish pitch tailored just yet. But 5 walks, 30 strikeouts. Opponents batted .227 on the weekend, and they had a team ERA of 2.33. The best part was the most earned runs allowed, Penn.
With 2.
So, it was just so awesome to see the staff do that. No Canes Cat Heat. I don't want any of that bad juju over here. You stay in Miami. You stay in Miami.
3 quality starts, I believe, too. By the way, by the starters, all 3 had a quality start.
Yep, they were. I mean, they were phenomenal. The offense obviously struggled, but I tip my hat to who was on the mound. Yeah, Mississippi State's pitching staff is phenomenal, and I firmly believe that the guy that they saw with Penn, right, he's going to be a Wake guy next year.
Yep,
he's also a very good pitcher. I mean, obviously you're going to face good pitching, but Kansas State's staff doesn't have the numbers that Mississippi State does. So from that standpoint, like I do think that the Virginia offense, though stymied, and again, they took advantage. I mean, the Luke Hansen single, that is taking advantage of opportunities. It wasn't like that inning fell apart before that. It fell apart after that. You got, big, obviously the big at bat from Eric Becker. I mean, the freshmen, the first year Who's, were phenomenal between them and Becker and Ford.
Matt Augustine.
Matt Augustine was great out of the pen. I mean, this future is so bright. Obviously, Monty, I think you tweeted it today, and hopefully they don't get high enough draft picks because Virginia always has a tendency to get these, really great recruits that commit, but then they get drafted and then they don't come. Yeah, UVA's got 4 Gatorade Players of the Year, Nick, that are committed to be in the on campus next year. So that's obviously, we'll see if that happens. But, for now, that looks pretty good for Virginia. But, I mean, this was, again, awesome. Obviously, the dish was rocking. Monty, I got some pictures from some friends. I know you said, too, you were very impressed with how much it was of Virginia fans and not necessarily Mississippi State fans. Monty, I'm a little salty at Virginia. It's the first time I never got an email to actually purchase tickets for Supers because I always just buy them and give them to people. That's my way of supporting the program. But there was just so much demand that they never even needed to ask little old me to buy a ticket. So they're already obviously sold out, which was awesome. I mean, I'm very thrilled with how it went. And, I mean, there's not much more to add besides just that was a Oh, actually, I have one thing. The College Experience podcast, for those of you who have listened to it, it's a pretty good podcast, mainly focused on the gambling side of college baseball. But one of their co-hosts was basically belittling Virginia and said this was all Mississippi State sucking. And if they had a coach that had a half, literally, end quote, had a half a brain cell, they would have won that series. And I say to you, you're wrong. Look at the numbers, watch the games again, turn your bias off for a minute because Virginia was the better team. It wasn't just coaching. Virginia, like you can say Lamonis made the wrong decision. Hey, buddy, Virginia was still winning in that game when he made that decision.
Yep.
Like, yeah, the score is different and the game is over in the ninth because of that. But Virginia was 3 outs away, regardless of what Lamonis did, from winning that game.
Yep.
So.
And they didn't, unbelievable from the Who's. Let's go to our last regional. Micah, take us away. Clemson. They go through the Tigers.
I mean, Clemson's getting what they deserve, which is a super regional. I mean, I want to make sure that is clear, right? That fan base is getting what they deserve.
I thought you were saying they get what they deserve, and it's Florida.
I mean, for what it's worth, man, that in my opinion is the best storyline matchup we have of the ACC Supers. It is, Monty.
No, I'm just mad. I'm not arguing your point. I'm just mad that Florida's in the tournament.
Yeah, but that's how that works, right? The teams that we say don't believe, like they don't deserve, because again, they don't deserve.
Right. The key is not that they're not talented enough to be in there. That's if they weren't talented enough to be in there, I wouldn't be as mad. But the fact that we know they can go on a run despite not being deserving to be there is what's frustrating.
And the fact that they were given a very friendly regional, in my opinion, as well, is also not completely fair because Oklahoma State had not done anything. The Big Ten was awful all year. And Nebraska was just the Big Ten tournament champion, not even regular season. But anyways, that is actually really funny. I didn't think about that for Florida State fans. They have to pick a side in this one. Poor Knowles. I didn't even think about that. I think my favorite thing is the amount of facts that have been tweeted out. Shout out to our guys, Nacho and Analysis, the ones that invited me into the Cajun Cafe. I'll be actually on their podcast tomorrow if anyone that's listening cares about Clemson baseball. But my favorite thing is they tweeted out what was popular the last time Florida came to Clemson, South Carolina for a baseball series. If you guys didn't know, the last time Florida came to Clemson was 1930. Mickey Mouse was just a comic strip coming out that year. I can't remember what he had said. The most popular soda was some brand that doesn't even exist anymore. It was a bunch of just random 1930s facts, and it was just so funny because it's crazy to think that those two brands have not played each other in Clemson, and even the last time they played was still 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, I think maybe even longer, maybe in the 80s they've even played each other. So, I mean, Clemson's going to be insane, Monty. I mean, I've debated potentially going there for a super game if it all works out. But I mean, that place it's the best atmosphere I've ever experienced for a home site for a baseball game. It really was. I mean, not to slander Georgia or Virginia last year or even Wake when they hosted Bama. I mean, that place was just different. And We Like the Party is still stuck in my head. I don't know if it's ever going to leave my head. But I mean, that was just, that fan base is special, and that ballpark is special when it's rocking. That Saturday night was probably the best night of college baseball I've ever had from a fun standpoint. Not best game, not best anything. Just, I mean, Clemson battle, and we saw Clemson. We saw that they're able to win in different ways. They didn't use the home run ball. They got the bullpen that they needed. The pitching out of the bullpen was phenomenal. I finally got clarification that, I mean, I know I've been saying it wrong, but I finally have ingrained in my brain that it's Canuck and not Canuck every time I've been saying Canuck. And I'm mad none of you have ever corrected me. So thanks, co-hosts. But
I mean, I say it right.
Yeah, but it'd been nice if you would have corrected me on Micah, you're just you're dumb.
You literally asked for a meme that said, "I'm knocking on your door."
But I said Canacking. That's the thing. You just you put in your own head. But anyways, besides the point, it's my fault. I'm not blaming anybody else.
You just blamed us.
No, I wish you would have been nice and saved me from saying it wrong for the last whole season. But yeah, especially it's more Nick's fault than anything. He's just looking at me mischievously. But no, I mean, this Clemson was awesome. Their regional overall, I mean, beautiful to see Vandy get eliminated first. I mean, that was a chef's kiss between them losing to High Point and getting absolutely shellacked by Coastal. And I mean, everyone says that Clemson got an easy regional because Vandy got eliminated. High Point obviously was not that much of a threat from a talent standpoint comparatively to Clemson. And people didn't think Coastal deserved to be in, but Coastal was playing for more than just Coastal Carolina in an NCAA tournament run. I mean, there was an extra oomph about them with Gilmore, knowing that this is Gilmore's last hurrah. So to overcome the way they did overall was impressive. And we saw in the last couple innings on that game on Sunday what the great version of Clemson looks like. And if that team shows up in the Supers against Florida, I'd like to think Clemson fans can finally taste Omaha again.
Yeah, Clemson took care of business. I picked High Point to win. I thought High Point played really well. They finished third. They played Clemson really well in the first game as well, but ultimately didn't quite do what I thought. I knew a 4 seed would win. I chose the wrong one. But yeah, great job by Clemson. Nick, what are your thoughts on Clemson before we move on to our previews?
Man, Clemson's out for blood. I remember just feeling so empty last year after they lost. I really wanted them to advance because that team had been through so much and the winning streak they went on. It just felt like
I miss Caden Rice so much and Billy.
I know. Me too. It just felt incomplete last year. Like we were going into Supers. It was like, it feels like Clemson should be here and they're not. Like everything that went down in that regional, Cam Ketterell getting ejected and all of that was just, obviously bold, but they had the absolute right to celebrate. They are back. They get to host Supers, which is fantastic. They looked really dominant. Coastal gave him a scare, though. The hidden ball trick was so awesome. That was just so beautiful. I was smiling watching that video. And I just had to. I watched it like 5 times in a row just to see like where the exchange was. I wanted to get the players' reaction, and I'm just like thinking to myself when Caden Grice. Or no, not Caden. Blake Wright, not Caden. I don't know why I said that.
I just got him in your head. He's in the Arizona Diamondbacks.
When Blake Wright was holding the ball and he was back in his position, I was just thinking to myself, if that were me, my heart would be going a million miles an hour. Like, oh my God, this is gonna work. This is gonna work. No one knows that I have the ball, and that was just so cool. So. I'm glad that we got a hidden ball trick in one of these regionals because that was awesome. But shout out to Clemson. They deserve it. I'm excited for their regional. I think, we can all agree Florida didn't deserve to be in this, but they got a very favorable regional. I think it's going to be very exciting. It might be closer than we think. I think Florida is on a little roll right now. But, Clemson is Clemson. They've got talent everywhere. For right now, I think Florida just has Jack Caglione. It's going to be a fun one, though. I'm excited for this regional or super regional.
Yeah. By the way, real quick, Micah, it's pronounced Canuck.
I know. Thank you.
You're welcome. You asked for it. I gave it to you. I'm a man of the people. All right, Josh asked over under 3.5 ACC teams in Omaha. We are going to talk about that as we get to our previews, but let's start with the super regional previews. Which one do we want to start with? Let's go to Athens.
Oh, all right.
All right, let's go with the only one that doesn't have a host ACC school. That's going to be Athens, Georgia, the number 7 national seed. They're going to be hosting the 10 seed NC State, a trip to Omaha on the line. It's one of 2 ACC SEC matchups. Nick, I'm going to start with Micah on his thoughts here. What are we thinking here for Micah? You like,
Yeah.
what
What
do we
about
think?
Micah? What
Well,
about me?
your head's down the entire time. I can't even tell if
It's
you're
a
paying attention.
CBC related thing. I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Okay,
Uncle
I
Rocky.
thought you were frozen. Okay,
No.
like sorry.
I'm here.
But what are your thoughts here? Let's preview this series. What did you see from Georgia that's going to be a problem besides Charlie Condon?
I know what a problem is going to be for Georgia. Their bullpen. Their bullpen's very rough. If NC State can be in a game, like if they're within a run or two late and can get to that Georgia bullpen, they're in trouble. They really are. I mean, NC State, Georgia Tech had the bases loaded not once, not twice, but 3 times on Georgia.
How many of them were walks and hit by pitches?
A lot.
Yeah, that's a problem.
You give those free bases to NC State. I don't mean to insult Georgia Tech because that's not what I don't want to catch a stray here. But that NC State lineup is going to more likely than not make them pay comparatively to what Georgia Tech did.
Yeah.
Ooh, after that JMU game. Anyway, sorry. Continue, Micah. I don't mean to interrupt.
I mean, maybe the ACC is just cursed with the bases loaded because nobody wanted hit with the bases loaded this year or this regional time around. But I think that's obviously. I mean, the bullpen. Here's how I'm going to say this: the bullpen favors NC State. Starting pitching favors NC State. Lineup top to bottom favors NC State. The difference is to me is that Georgia has 3 guys that you have to avoid. Obviously, Charlie Condon,
Corey Collins
being the big one. Trey Phelps, whatever it is. You're gonna have, like, it's the thing. Their lineup is stacked to where, a guy like, we'll say Dom, right? He's got to be careful early. Georgia's going to put pressure on you early. So how are you going to respond to that? Because you can't just immediately walk the bases loaded to start the game. Because Condon's going to probably be in that 3 spot. So that lineup at the very front half, especially for Georgia, is very, very good. And they have a very good fan base. They're going to be fired up. So it's going to be a hostile environment. It wasn't as hostile as I expected when that Georgia Tech game came around. But I'm also putting that on a Sunday night. And, it wasn't necessarily a do or die game for the Dogs. But, it was, I think at the end of the day, I really like this matchup for NC State because I think what Georgia does really, really well, NC State can mold that to a point with their pitching staff. And then on the other side, like, I think NC State's offense can do a lot of damage, especially to this Georgia bullpen.
All right, Nick, your turn.
I really wish I was going to this super regional. Unfortunately, I can't, but I will be watching, eyes glued to the TV, even as I work, because the game's on at noon on a Saturday. So I will be watching throughout work. But I'm really feeling good about booking a trip to Omaha because I feel good about NC State right now.
And congratulations, Georgia, on your trip to Omaha.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the kiss of death right there, Nick.
Everything that Micah kind of just said.
Every NC State fan watching, I need you to tweet at Nick right now. Boo.
No, please do not. Please do not.
Every Georgia fan go woof woof.
Yeah, actually, everyone just tweet at Nick woof. Because that way it's either you're cheering for Georgia or it's like the woof, bad woof.
Yeah. Basically, everything that Micah said is kind of spot on in what I was thinking in my head. If the pitching script can stay to the script, I think State's going to have their way. It's obviously going to be a lot tougher. The bats are looking really good right now. Although, like I said, State had the bases loaded, I want to say 5 different times in that game against JMU. And the only runs that came in were back-to-back walks. So the clutch hitting has been in question all year when the middle of the lineup comes up to bat, when it's Amac, when it's Pennington, when it's Cozart. But I feel good about the starters. I feel good about the bullpen. Just don't give up the big mistake. I think if they can keep playing their best ball right now, I think that they can come out with this.
All right. So let's hear your picks. Micah, what's your pick here?
Wolfpack.
Nick?
Pack 2 out of 3.
I'm going. Well, it would have to be. I guess it could go 2-0. I'm going to go Georgia.
Wow.
I don't know what Mike is doing there.
That's a sweep.
Oh, you're going with a sweep. Okay. So, yep, you're welcome, NC State fans, for going Georgia and not giving you guys a clean sweep.
Who's that coming down the track? It's the Mean Machine in red and black. Go Dogs. Go Dogs. That's my favorite thing. Is they'll do that chant a lot during the game. So there's also nothing better in this world than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan, if you didn't know that one.
Okay, moving along. Let's go. Let's stay down south. We're going to go to Tallahassee, where Micah's UConn is going to go to my Florida State Seminoles. So, Micah, let's break down UConn. Talk to me, Goose.
Why am I going first again?
Because you're talking about UConn. Do you not want to talk about UConn? We'll talk about Florida State first.
That's fine. We'll talk about UConn. Here's what I got to say about UConn. Their starting pitching is good, but it's not going to be the level of Florida State. But if UConn can get to the if UConn has a lead late, you're in trouble. Stephen Quigley, their closer, is phenomenal. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, UConn, Monty probably has the better bullpen in this super regional. So if you get to the point where, at least from a consistency standpoint, we know that Florida State has bullpen arms that can do the job. The problem is
Oxford. I don't think you have Oxford and Holtz. You don't have much consistency.
That's kind of where I was going. Because Armstrong, when he's on, is phenomenal. Same with Abraham. Same with
Charles.
You can kind of go down. Yeah, exactly. We've seen some really rough outings from them too, to where I feel more comfortable. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. I feel more comfortable about the UConn bullpen than I do Florida State's bullpen. That being said, UConn is not a very explosive offense. I have a really good feeling that Jamie Arnold really shut them down on Friday night. And then again, Friday afternoon. Because, let's make UConn play the first game of Supers after being the last game of regional play. But anyways, overall, I mean, UConn is a very he closed out their games this weekend. He's their back end bullpen guy.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm very confused now because he was a starter, but I swear he closed out the game this weekend. Anyways, he is a starter though, so I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just having a complete brain fart. So it's a good call. He is a starter, but I swear he closed out the. Anyways, that's side's point. Doesn't matter. The pitching staff for UConn is very, very good, regardless of where we're going with this, and they're consistent. So, yeah. But anyways, now I'm rattled because I'm mixing up who I was talking about. So now I got to look at the actual roster. So, but go ahead on Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Jamie Arnold and Carson Dorsey. Here, Kane's Cats, he says, how can you be a Virginia fan? I'm an ACC fan except for Miami. So I can call any ACC team my team. So take that, except for Miami because,
Okay, that's what I was mixing up. Okay, sorry. Quigley is a starter. He did close out the game yesterday, got the final 5 outs. So he's the type of guy that they can use both ways. That's where I was getting. I was like, I know I'm not confusing this. So anyway, because he was the all-tournament, he was a first-team all-tournament or all-region guy. But Quigley, he's kind of their guy. He's kind of like Jamie Arnold in that sense. Like, he's the guy that's going to start, but you're also in a do-or-die situation. If he's got pitches left, he's coming in.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Well, yeah, because I want to make sure I'm not just sounding like I'm dumb. I was like, I know that he closed out a game this weekend, and I was right. So at least I'm not losing my mind.
Right. So, yeah, Carson Dorsey, Jamie Arnold, this pitching staff, I think, is going to get it done. I don't think UConn's going to win a game, in my opinion. I don't think James Tibbs is going to go hitless this weekend either. Cam Smith is going to do Cam Smith things. He's going to hit the ball hard and make some things happen. Nick, what are your thoughts here? Talk to me about Florida State and UConn before we do our picks.
Oh, man, don't sleep on UConn, Florida State. Don't do it because like I said earlier when we talked about Duke, this program is very good. They are very good. That could happen. That could happen.
Yeah.
But don't sleep on them. They are.
What did
This
that comment
program is
say? I didn't
wanting
see
to
it.
take that next step. So we'll see what happens. But
I don't like this because I can never read the comments because my mute button, for whatever reason, is right in front of it. There we go. Huh, yeah, that is so true. That's actually really wild. But
But I like Florida State a lot, man. I mean, Jamie Arnold has his stuff going. The lineup is dangerous. I think UConn is about to play their toughest opponent they've seen all year. It's in a hostile environment. It's going to be a fun show. But as long as Florida State can stick to the script and their players show up, there should be no reason why they lose.
It still cracks me up that how good Carson Dorsey is as a starter and not as a reliever at all. Like, he just is not comfortable coming out of the bullpen compared to being a starter. That just cracks me up. I know pitchers are weird, so you never know. But it's also been really cool to see Jamie Arnold develop from last year to this year. He's a very different pitcher than he was as a freshman. It's cool to have seen him have that breakout. But let's start with our picks. Micah, who you picking? You going with your Huskies?
for the longest time, I was kind of leaning
For the
it.
longest time.
Yeah, right. But no, I had Florida State in Omaha at the beginning of this.
Nick froze. Oh, there it is. He's back.
So I'm sticking with.
No,
I'm going to
just
stick
dazed and confused.
with Florida State. I do want to mention something real quick about UConn though, Monty. If they can get the pitching that they got in the Norman Regional, then this is not the team that you see in the box score. Like the guy who threw yesterday, Gabe Van Iman, whatever it is, he came from D3 Endicott. He was lights out yesterday, but he hasn't been that way all year. So if this UConn team plays the way they did in the Norman Regional, they are obviously a lot better than everyone's giving them credit for, because obviously you look at the numbers and there's arguments that UConn may have missed the tournament with how bad they were at the beginning of the season out of conference. So, but no, I mean, I have Florida State, and I think I'm going to lean in Josh's potential idea of that they're going to be. No, UConn's going to win a game. UConn's going to win a game.
Okay. All right. That took a really long time to get to his pick, but we finally got there in the end. He gave us some extra useful information.
And now here's some more information. No, I'm just kidding.
You did give us some more extra information. I was just sitting there. I was like, oh, okay. Nick, who you got?
I got the Noles. I think they can win this in 2.
Yeah, I got the Noles. I think the pitching with Jamie Arnold, if it goes to a third game, it's going to get interesting there. I think UConn's got a chance if it goes to a third game, but if I feel like Florida State's going to take care of business in 2. All right, let's move along to
Why don't you just do the last regional we're not covering, since Nick doesn't believe in covering regionals?
Is it Clemson?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Clemson. Okay, yeah, let's do Clemson. Clemson is hosting Florida. Micah already gave us a fun fact on the last time Florida and Clemson met. It's a 3-seed Florida who came through the Stillwater Regional. They did lose a game to Oklahoma State and had to come from the losers bracket, but they did so. Obviously, they got some of the big stars there, Colby Shelton, Jack Caglione.
Caglione. See, that's how you correct somebody for saying their name wrong.
I literally did it earlier. I helped you. I said, hey, Micah, it's Canuck.
I know, I'm just giving you a hard time, but it's Caglione. It's not Caglione.
See, I think it's rude that you just cut me off and did that. So, anyway.
Okay, Monty, now that you're done talking, it's Jack.
I wasn't done talking, but now I don't know where I was. And that's why it's rude you interrupted me. But anyway. All right, so we're at Clemson, Florida. Let's start with Micah first again because he pissed me off.
Well, for starters, Jack Caglione is obviously a X factor, not because obviously offensively he's a threat, but what are you going to get from him on the mound? Because that's going to be a really important piece. Obviously, he's probably going to be the if there's a third game starter. So depending on obviously if that situation comes, what do you get from him on the mound? Because sometimes he's great, sometimes he's less than stellar. This is a team that's a year removed from the national runner-up, so they know how to win in the postseason. Clearly, they're playing good baseball right now. They have a chip on their shoulder, right? Because every single one of us here, and we're not the only people, right, that thought Florida didn't deserve to be in. So they're playing with house money at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about Florida, right, there's so many question marks because they're talented enough to do it. But, what is that? Oh, but, at the same time, will it become more of a situation with Florida of do those stars shine bright? Because, I mean, this roster by itself is comparable, if not maybe better than Clemson's roster. Purely based off of, like, again, we're talking about recruiting, we're talking about draft prospects, all that stuff.
Florida was either the number 2 or number 3 team preseason, right?
So, like, if they play to that number, right, like kind of what we talked about with Wake all year. If Wake plays to their potential, they're one of the, if not the best, one of the best teams in college baseball. So which Florida shows up? Because if the Florida that struggled and barely was above 500 shows up, Clemson might be able to sweep this whole thing. So it's going to be interesting. I think for Clemson's standpoint, can they continue the offensive fireworks they got late against Coastal in that second game on Sunday? Because if they can continue the bats like that, if Hinderleiter can do what he did down the stretch, if Canarella can continue to hit at the level that he is, I mean, he missed the home run in the first game against Coastal, finally got one out in the second game against Coastal. If he can remain hot, if they continue to play good defense, and they can get that pitching that they got, I mean, the bullpen was phenomenal for the Tigers this whole weekend. They get that, I mean, I don't know many teams in the country that can beat them, but at the same time, I mean, I still think this is the most difficult regional for an ACC team. I really do believe that.
Super regional.
Or, yeah, I keep calling them regionals. Thank you.
Nick did the same thing. It's fine. I just wanted to correct you.
I'm just going to start calling them supers. That way I just don't even mix up the words.
I am excited about this one. Also, I think an underrated player who's been in the lineup towards the end of the year. He's not doing Billy Amick things, but it kind of reminds me of getting in there and producing off the bench and getting some starts. Jack Crichton, he's an all Monty player. He's on the all Monty team. He's an outfitter by trade, but I think he's been filling it at first base. Yes, sir.
I don't want to cut you off, so I'm raising my hand to ask a question.
Oh, okay, I thought you were going to correct me. Go ahead.
How does one get on the all Monty team? You don't need to explain now. I just need at some point an explanation of what
there's no really qualifications, just who I just randomly decide to really, really, really like.
Can I be on your all Monty team for ACC coverage?
Absolutely. It's similar to what Jake does. Jake just falls in love with players and just claims that's the same thing for me. It's just players that I really love for no reason at all, really. But yeah, Jack Crichton, I'm really looking forward to seeing him. He could be an X factor, but again, you're going to be looking at those big bats. Alden Mathis, Jimmy Obertop, good old Obertop. Nick, what are your thoughts on this super before we get into our picks?
This is probably the most exciting, the most dangerous supers for an ACC team, in my opinion. Because like Micah said, if you get the preseason number 3 team Florida Gators, that's going to be a very tough challenge for Clemson. But again, Clemson has played great all year. I think besides the one hiccup against Wake Forest, they've been solid as a rock. I feel good about Clemson, but I'm trying to just tell myself Florida got an easy regional. They're not supposed to be here. Clemson should take care of business, but you never know. The talent could show up. They had the number 1 strength of the schedule for a reason, I guess. So we'll see. I love Clemson's bats. I love their pitching. Everything's been clicking for them right now.
Yeah. Obviously that's a huge thing, and we love that. Let's do picks. Nick, I'll start with you.
I'll take Clemson 2 of 3. I think Florida will get 1.
Micah?
Clemson fans, I don't want to be negative, but you're going to have to sweat. I think they're going to win it, but I agree with Nick. I'd say Clemson in 3, and I just have a weird feeling it's going to be special, but it's going to be the most stressful special you can experience, aka like a walk-off home run or something where you're stressing late in I guess that would be Monday game. right?
Yeah, they're Saturday. They're on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah.
So they're
I mean,
Saturday.
I'm sorry, Clemson fans. I'm not necessarily cheering for you to be stressed, but if there's a Monday night game in Clemson, I will be there. So
we're gonna hold you to that. I refuse to believe in Florida pitching. I refuse to do it. I
well,
don't care. I
clearly
don't
you're a
care
big
if they,
Florida State guy. Why would you
yeah,
believe in
yeah,
Florida?
yeah. I don't care if
Do you
they end
think
up,
we see Cags on the mound?
huh?
Game 3, yes. If there's a game 3, I think you see Cags. I think.
Yeah.
Because
But I'm
he
going.
pitched the third game of the Stillwater Regional, didn't he? I know he started
Yeah,
one of them.
I think he
he
started
pitched.
the second
He
game they
struggled
lost.
though, right? Like he struggled bad, didn't he?
I think he lost the game to Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because they beat Nebraska game 1. You're right. Yeah, he did
Yeah.
lose the Oklahoma State game too.
Right.
You're
So
right.
I'm going with Clemson in 3. They might sweat a little bit. I don't think it's going to be quite to the degree Micah thinks, but it's scary. We're all taking Clemson. But let's move along to Micah's regional. The North Carolina Tar Heels. They welcome the dangerous J.J. Weatherholtz of West Virginia. J.J. Weatherholt is finally healthy for probably like the first time this year. And they are dangerous. I did love their tweet yesterday that the players went home in a charter plane. The staff went commercial, and the home crowd was able to welcome the players back while the staff was stuck on a layover in Atlanta. That was a pretty funny Twitter moment last night. But West Virginia, they're a dangerous team. They're a 3 seed, and they looked pretty impressive in Tucson. Micah, you're not going
Can we
first this
please
time.
not go with me to start every single one?
Would you not interrupt? I literally said, Micah, we're not going to go with you.
Well,
We're
I
gonna go
can't
with
hear
Nick.
you because unfortunately, my friend keeps opening the door and it's very loud. So sorry.
Yeah,
thought you
I
said
was like,
Micah,
I
and
literally went, Micah, we're not going with you first. Nick, talk to me about
But I
this.
wanted to go first, Monty. I'm just kidding.
We're going
Mute
with
him.
this.
Mute him.
He's not getting the Jake treatment. Nick, talk to me about whoever you want. You want to talk about West Virginia, or you want to talk about one of the 2 teams in the Super Regional, please.
I will talk a little bit of both. How about that?
That
We'll
works.
talk a little bit of both. Let's start with UNC. So again, like we said, very tough draw in their regional. They struggled a little bit. I mean, even in their first game, right, against Long Island, it was they had to pull off a miracle to do that. So this West Virginia team is very, very dangerous. They've been. I remember doing top 25 all season, and they were just like on the cusp. I had them considered many times this season. The Big 12 is a good conference. I don't think it's up to the ACC standards or SEC standards, but West Virginia has had this coming for a while. I feel like they should. I feel like their season ended short last season, and I feel like they're out to prove something this year. But I think UNC's got the talent. I mean, Vance Honeycutt is playing like with his hair on fire right now. Ozuna looks pretty good. Gallagher looks good. I love the UNC lineup a lot. I like their pitching. I don't know if West Virginia can match up with the Tar Heels. It's scary right now that I'm going a lot of ACC teams at the moment. And considering I picked LSU to win that regional, I'm not liking my picks right now, but this is off the top of my head at the moment.
All right, Micah. Do you think Puck knows he's on camera? Because he's acting like he knows. But Micah, talk to me about this Super Regional.
I'm just curious what his picks are. Who's he rolling with?
Hey,
I am rolling with Carolina.
I wasn't asking you, Nick. I meant the dog.
Yeah, who you picking? Huh? You don't know? Now he thinks I'm asking him. He's like, something here? Great.
No, I think Monty, the biggest question mark. So shout out to what's the West Virginia page? No, I can't shout out a page if I don't remember the name of it. Crap. Oh my goodness. But there's a West Virginia guy that recently followed me that's been great. He was kind of talking about their regional run. And one thing that he mentioned that concerned him a lot was that if they would have had to play another game, he thought they were going to be out of arms. But the thing with that is they played 3 games, and this is a super regional with 3 games max. So the arms thing is not as big of a deal. But I will say, when you look at the numbers, North Carolina has the better pitching staff. Their best starter is Derek Clark. He's pretty good. Obviously, right? You got JJ Weatherholt doing JJ Weatherholt things. Obviously, he started the season a little banged up, but Reed Chumley deserves a ton of love. He's hitting 310, played in pretty much every single game they've had all year. He's their home run leader as well. Sam White's pretty good. This is a lineup that's not going to scare you from a standpoint of this guy is the guy, minus obviously JJ Weatherholt. But I do like what they bring to the table. And I think the biggest thing for me, Monty, is the special factor. So I don't know if you guys are aware. You probably are, Monty. Nick, I not to say you wouldn't, but I don't think you follow the national landscape of college baseball as much. This is their head coach's last hurrah as well. It's Randy Mazey's final hurrah. This is it.
Hoorah?
So they're playing what?
Hoorah or hurrah?
Hoorah. It's the same thing. Who cares?
It is. It just sounds funnier.
But anyways, I think that's a big part of this. That being said, though, I mean, the Arizona regional was a good one, but again, it was all kind of an even playing field good one. I don't know if there was a single team in there that we all thought was that great. I mean, Arizona RPI of 30, whatever it was. DBU didn't even win the CUSA. So
I've never heard the CUSA called that.
You ever heard it called the CUSA?
No,
you ever heard it called the CUSA, Monty?
I love that.
Clearly, Monty does not follow college football. Everybody in college football world calls it. It's midweek CUSA. But
no way. I've always heard conference use. I was shocked.
Yeah, CUSA.
That's great. Go ahead. Continue.
But obviously, DBU wasn't a world beater, and Grand Canyon was a very threatening 4 seed. But again, we're talking 4 seed here. We're not talking, super regional type team. At the end of the day, I think the Bosch is going to be rocking. They have done a great job of making sure these tickets are getting into Carolina fans' hands. I just think that it's going to be a very great environment. It's going to be Bosch at dark or at night, whatever you want to call it, which is obviously a nice experience too. And I think West Virginia is comparable, maybe worse than LSU. I mean, I think that's a fair thing to say. So I like North Carolina's chances, which again is making me sick because I feel like I have to pick some non-ACC team to win this.
Nope.
I can't have all 5 going to Omaha, can I?
I mean, you could.
Yeah. Okay. Should I, Monty?
I mean, we both know you're going to pick Kansas State, so I don't know why you're acting like you're going to pick all 5 ACC.
That's a good point. Monty.
We both know that you haven't even gotten to Virginia. We know you're picking against them.
Good point.
You hate UVA.
That's a good point. Very good point. I do.
All right. I like the pitching staff. Vance Honeycutt has shown up in big moments. I mean, the bottom of the order has shown up pretty big. I mean, Alex Madera had the game-winning hit. Gavin Gallagher hits number 7 has been fantastic. Colby Wilkerson had the tying hit. I don't understand why the defense was playing so deep against Colby Wilkerson, but I'll take it. I really like UNC to take care of business here. I'm going to pick them to win. I'm going to go to Nick here. Nick, your pick.
Carolina.
You don't like it either. You don't like that you're picking all of them. That's why I went
I don't
Georgia.
like I'm picking all of them, man.
That's why I went Georgia early.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look, you got to realize the ACC got so much better this year. And
it's hard to predict. It's hard to predict where the upset's going to happen because I'm sure there will be one. We're just going to be wrong on it.
It is hard. And it's like you look at if you want to look at the only team that's not hosting supers, it's like that's kind of like right now the sexy upset pick, which I'm not a fan of right now being a State fan. But yeah, it's like where is the upset going to happen? Like I feel confident in all these teams right now.
Yeah, I feel confident in all these teams, but I'm also confident that not all 5 will make it. I just don't know who the one's going to be or the two's going to be.
Yeah.
Micah, did you already made your pick basically with Carolina?
Yeah, a part of me does really want to buy into the West Virginia, like, again, special season of it all. But, like, here's what I'll say. If West Virginia was playing two of these ACC super regional teams that were not named North Carolina, I'd pick them. But I really do believe that North Carolina played about as bad as it possibly could to win a series. And again, I just really believe this LSU team was special and deservingly or undeservingly was put in a regional that they shouldn't have been put into. So I'm going to lean here with UNC. Plus, I'm going to be there. So, I mean, I want to see Carolina advance, and I want to see I want to see a dog pile for an ACC team. So
They did not dogpile last night, right?
they did not.
Okay.
Yeah. But I assume they would if they go.
Oh yeah. No, you don't take the Omaha trips for granted, even if you go to Omaha all the time.
Yeah.
I think you dogpile regardless. For super regionals, I like that. But let's move along to the final super of the weekend. It'll be 7:00 Friday, 3:00 Saturday, and 3:00 Sunday if needed. Two of the best big name shortstops in the country. We've got Kalen Culpepper for Kansas State. We got Griff O'Farrell for Virginia. We got a bona fide big name reliever in Tyson Neighbors, who was pretty instrumental in that win over Arkansas. It's going to be a really fun one because Kansas State, on paper, again, Virginia looks to be the better team, but Kansas State's gritty, and they have set themselves up with the way they've done their non-conference schedule. I'm a big fan of what they did non-conference-wise. Micah saw him in person during a midweek at Clemson. I think it's going to be a fun series. I'm excited to get there. Micah, can you give us any more insight on Kansas State besides what I already gave? I think Brady Day is also a really big bat for them.
Yeah, Brady Day is definitely someone you need to talk about. Jaden Parsons too. He's been really, really good for them, especially kind of late. I think with Kansas State, I think you mentioned it or you nailed it, Monty. They're a talented team, but let's just call it what it is. Virginia is more talented, but they are gritty and
they'll manufacture runs.
Yeah, I'm not trying to give a stray to Pitt, but they are a more talented Pitt. They're gritty as you know what, like you said. I still think Griff's a better shortstop, but there's a legitimate. We could have an actual debate about Culpepper and O'Farrell.
Yeah,
who's the best shortstop in the super regional?
What's interesting, they both played for Team USA, and Griff was the starting shortstop, and I think that has more to do with how good he is defensively as well.
Yeah, correct. I think that's where the difference is. I think you could say Culpepper's a better offensive threat. But not that O'Farrell's got a bad bat, just Culpepper's a little bit more.
I think the power numbers, yeah,
correct. And then obviously on the flip side, Griff is just, he's
unbelievable.
Yeah, he makes my heart melt. But on the pitching side, their starting pitching is kind of similar to Virginia. They don't, I guess, obviously Virginia has Blanco who has the great numbers, but Kansas State really doesn't have that guy. Owen Barima has kind of been their go-to guy, but his ERA is in the 5s. They've gotten some starts from Josh Wintrobe, I think is how you say it. But again, their pitching has been so-so, but I think what scares me the most, Monty, is seeing what they did to Hagen Smith.
Yeah, by the way, they didn't, I watched that inning. I don't really understand what happened.
Yeah, that's true. It did just kind of.
Yeah, and then basically Culpepper got the big hit. He had the home run, the 3-run blast, but they'd already put 2 or 3 on the board on Hagen Smith at that point.
Yeah.
But they were out hitting that game 13-5.
That's true. It was a bad outing from Hagen Smith. And when it rains, it pours. Now I can say it now that they've been eliminated, but I've always said Arkansas in the postseason, they're cursed, man. After that whole dropped fly ball that would have won him the College World Series in 18, right? I think is what it was.
I think so, yeah.
18 or 19, but it's I kind of feel bad for Arkansas fans, but yeah, this Kansas State team is really good. And Monty, one thing I wanted to just make sure I said this. Last year, I will never forget, I sat behind home plate, right next to the Oklahoma dugout on the on-deck circle, and I said, to Wallace Clark, by the way, Kansas State should be here, not you. And I was wearing a K-State. For those of you that don't know, when I lived in Nebraska, I was a K-State football season ticket holder. So I have a little soft spot for the old purple and white there. But I'll never forget. I said Kansas State should be here, not you. Well, there you go. Kansas State is coming to Charlottesville for postseason baseball. It's just a year later than it was supposed to be.
Way to go! You're the reason Wallace Clark transferred.
Oh, drats! I scared him away to Duke. Darn it!
You brought him to the ACC. He said that's the kind of atmosphere I want. No,
He's like, I'm gonna show that. And the best part is Duke won that series with Virginia, so he got his revenge on me too. I bet you when he stepped in the box, I hope that Virginia fan's watching. I hope he gets to experience what I felt.
Yep. Nick, what do you want to say about this regional, super regional? Man, I'm doing it now.
Yeah, my bad, Monty. I'll wear that one. I even tweeted it. I said regional in like a tweet earlier, and I was like, "Oops, it's a super."
Is this the supers? I almost said regional. I really almost said it. Is this the super regional that Nick doesn't go ACC? It is not. It is not. It is.
You don't have to do a pick yet. I was asking for your thoughts first, but you can do a pick.
My thoughts are Virginia looks really, really, really good. And the fact that the pitching staff, is clicking at the right time of year against, a really good Mississippi State team, a pretty good regional that they had. Oh, man, the Virginia seems very, very dangerous. I like what I saw this weekend from them. Boys, what do we do here, man? What do we do? Virginia looks the best of the five, I think, in my
opinion. That was kind of scary, right? And also, they're pitching.
Remember, Micah, we talked about it all year that this is a different Virginia team that had to rely on the bats to win games, and now all of a sudden their pitching looks phenomenal. They took a step up in this regional.
And you would say that Mississippi State's offense is more dangerous than Kansas State's, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
That's also what scares me, because then now you would think that the pitching would continue. So now I'm curious to see. I feel like, and the other thing is Drew Dickinson, Brian O'Connor talked about Drew Dickinson, the way he adjusts to calling a game in the postseason is just a big difference maker for Virginia. So I'm curious if how much that plays a factor, and why he can't call games like that during the regular season. But whatever, at least he's
got ice in that. He just clutches up when it matters.
Yeah. So it's interesting, but we'll see. But yeah, on paper, Virginia should be able to handle this. But again, they also dropped. They were heavily favored against Duke last year, even though they had lost to Duke, and Duke won game one. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle this. They're going to have to be good defensively because, again, Kansas State's going to manufacture runs. Sorry, my dogs are playing next to me. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But let's go to picks. Micah.
Man. All the logic in the world for me, Monty, says pick Virginia. It really does. And that's why I'm picking Kansas State, because I think what made me so sick to my stomach, Monty, is that even my brain said, man, I can't wait to see Virginia in Omaha again. And if my brain's doing that, that makes me sick to my stomach, because I've seen too many heartbreaks in my life with Virginia.
You were Mr. Kansas State.
Yeah, and again, I purposely picked going to Clemson earlier this year when they played Kansas State because I was so high on them. And they are playing better baseball than they have. Yeah, I'm gonna rock with Kansas State, just because also too, like, Arkansas, in my opinion, is about as good as Mississippi State. To go into Fayetteville and do what they did was quite impressive.
It's going to give a big boost of confidence.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So, I don't want to be negative towards Virginia, but I'm still, if it comes down to Jay Woolfolk in a winner-take-all game, are we going to get that same performance? I don't know. I still don't fully believe that that's going to be the norm with Jay. I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, I'm gonna go Kansas State in 3, and that makes me sick because logically it kind of says, everything says to pick Virginia, but that's why again, The amount of podcasts that I've listened to, Monty, about people already going, wow, Virginia's about to make their third Omaha trip in 4 years, has me go, yep, that means it's too good to be true. I'm not allowed to be happy in my sports fandom. So
I mean, I don't think it's about you, but that's fine. Nick, talk to me about your pick.
Kansas State seems very dangerous, but I like Virginia a lot more. I think everything is clicking for this team. Like I said, I think they're the most dangerous ACC team remaining because of the pitching that has just come up. So I'm rolling with the Who's.
Yeah, Micah's brought up some very good points, and he's saying everything logical is pointing to him, but everything logical also tells us that not all 5 ACC teams are going to go on, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
Even though we've picked 5, we know somewhere at least one team is going to stumble, possibly more than that. It's just hard to figure out who. But I'm still going to stick with Virginia, knowing that Micah's got a great point, and I also don't like that everyone is ready to pencil in Virginia with what Kansas State just did. It's going to be gritty, and it's going to be on the team to really focus and get this done.
I think my favorite part of this, Monty, too, is these bottom 4 of that bracket, right, is whoever comes out of the last 2, like the North Carolina, West Virginia series and Kansas State, Virginia series, are going to be meeting each other.
Yep.
So are we going to get Virginia versus West Virginia, which is a kind of fun regionality thing that doesn't happen as often as it probably should in sports, in all sports, not just baseball? Or do you get a Big 12 on Big 12 matchup? Do you get North Carolina versus West Virginia versus, never mind. I already said the other 3 options besides, again, just having North Carolina and Kansas State, which probably is the least fun one. But, it's going to be interesting. Plus, one thing, Monty, that was brought up to my attention was how bad Kansas State likes the idea of playing in Omaha because they're only 2.5 hours away.
Yeah,
So,
well, I mean, if they like that idea,
they could be the purple team that takes over Omaha this year.
Maybe they should have gone there before if they liked it so much, but whatever.
And now it's Kansas State in 2.
It's Kansas State in 2. Yeah, there you go. I get my Sunday off. Either way, my season of traveling is over this weekend. I will be there. Let's finish off with our final thoughts. We've gone almost a 2-hour show here. Micah, quickly, your final thoughts here because you're wordy.
Just means less.
3 words. I'm aroused. Nick, final thoughts.
Yes, you were correct. Ben Shinovsky is in the portal. I just saw that. Also, Hudson Lee, another relief pitcher, is in the portal as well. Kind of surprising that those 2 are in there, but whatever.
Should I get on Twitter and start calling for Tom Walter's head because, Twitter trolls?
He might be going to South Carolina anyway, so.
Final thoughts. Raleigh was great again, so thank you, Monty, for the hookup. That was fun. Had a great time. Won't forget it. Shout out to everyone that I met. Thank you, Greg, for your hospitality. It was great. Again, unfortunately, I won't be in Athens, but if the boys make it, I will be in. This guy over here who meanders on, needs to tell every single freaking story that pops up into his head because we said something. But if the boys make it, I will try my best to go to Omaha. So that's it for me.
All right. Well, for me, I'll be in Charlottesville. Micah will be in Chapel Hill, possibly in Clemson on Monday night. We won't
or Sunday.
Or Sunday. It's possible. We won't have anybody in Tallahassee or Athens because Nick is prioritizing his job, which is understandable. Whatever. But we'll have.
If only he was close with the store owner and manager and everyone that he needs to report to. If only.
Well, unfortunately, the store owner needs to go to California, so
it's my final thoughts right now. So go F yourselves. And we will have a final episode of Talking Ball with Chad Knight at some point. Right now, he's going viral for a fun tweet. But he's still he's in the process of moving out and dealing with the the transition of life that comes from your baseball career ending. and getting ready for that. So we don't have a date yet for that, but as soon as it is, I make sure it's tweeted, and we'll have a nice little wrap-up session, Talk Duke Baseball. But for now, that's it. We'll probably have some fun pop-up shows as we go along this week. Who knows? But that's it, and we'll see you guys next time.